Okay guys, this is Chelsea. I am back again, as promised, to show you the results of the resin pour in the laser cut earrings from yesterday. Couple of quick things. I did go ahead, you'll see some of these up here that already have some things done to them. I want to sort of show you each of the steps and try to make it a little quicker than last time. So let's go ahead and get started. This is one of the earrings that we did yesterday. I've taken the second one off already, but this one is totally, haven't done anything with it, still on the mat or on the packing tape with all of its masking. The resin has cured enough that we can go ahead and take it off of here and work with it. However, still try not to stick your fingers right on the resin. It is still soft enough that it can get fingerprints in it and things like that. So be careful, but it's plenty cured enough for us to get started. Sorry, it's one of my kiddos. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start by peeling this off. Generally, when I peel the tape off, I try to do it right across. I don't yank it like this. Try to do it flat. It leaves less residue, I found, from the tape itself. You end up getting a lot less residue stuck on the back. I'm not sure why, but that's just how it works. One of those things. And I'm gonna go ahead and peel. But again, with it being a softer wood, I have to be pretty careful not to scratch it. And I know people use different tools. I usually just use my fingernail and sort of pull it up and then just slowly peel it back. As I'm peeling it, and you can actually see through the tape probably, I realized this morning when I started looking at these that I made a mistake yesterday. Normally when I seal these with the spray sealer, I usually do at least 2 coats, usually 3, just to be on the safe side. And I was in such a hurry to get this done that I actually only did 1 coat. So you can see on here already, this is where the resin leaked through. And you can see on this side, we're fine, but this side has the blue, which shows me that when I sprayed in this direction and got the inside here, but did not go back and make sure that this side over here was covered as well with the sealer. So again, really make sure you do at least 2 coats, preferably 3 nice light coats to ensure that you really get down in there really well. I'm gonna go ahead to the front side and do the same. I'm going to show you in a minute. A lot of people, once they see this on their wood, assume that their earring is ruined and they're not going to be able to use it, and they just kind of toss it to the side. However, they are not ruined at all, and I will show you why in a minute. It just means you have to maybe adjust your approach just a little bit on how you're going to stain or color these to use them for earrings. So what I wanted to show you, I want to make sure you saw this where it did leak through. That's what it is. And it actually, you can see where it's darker here. It actually leaked all the way through to the edges on this one. But if you look at this guy, you can see that he actually turned out really well. This coloring here is just the natural grain of the wood. That was not from any of the resin seepage or anything. If you were to look really super close, you might be able to notice a little bit right around the edges here, but even that is really difficult to see unless you know what you're looking for. So most of that, if there is any issue, really just becomes part of that natural grain of the wood. And it's not something you have to really worry about, which is fantastic. I'm going to show you, this is the flower, and you can see it did the same thing. I'm trying to just tilt it so you can kind of see the different shades in there. There are sections that look really great where there was no seeping. Over here, you can see it was fine, and right here, but clearly this side had a lot more resin that seeped through. So again, it just shows me I sprayed from one side, didn't take the time to really spray well from the other side. Okay, again, you can see this side here has a lot of that, but this side is pretty good. So So this one, I haven't done any staining or anything. I just wanted you to sort of see how the two colors on here looked when we did that. And this one, I used a little bit darker stain than what I did for this guy. So you can see this one's definitely a little bit lighter, a little oakier looking, whereas this one's darker, more of a walnut stain, which I actually love with this pinkish purple color, especially when the light shines through it. It looks really, really pretty. And on this one, again, you cannot really tell at all that there was any leakage through here because of the natural wood grain causing some color differences throughout. And so again, looking at this, you might think, oh my goodness, it's totally ruined, but absolutely not. You just have to make sure you use a dark enough stain that it's gonna sort of cover up that discoloration and sort of hide where that color seeped through, okay? And then, so that's kind of those two. You can see the difference. Again, here's those versus how these turned out. This one, what's really interesting when I look at this one, I've already taken the masking off of this one. And you can see that this one, there was no seeping, mainly because this is a totally different kind of wood. This, even though it's light, kind of like the alder, it's definitely not as light colored, and it's also much harder than the alder, which I will probably not be using anymore for earrings simply because of this. However, this is a maple, and I really love how this turned out, especially up to the light. The transparency of the green and the blue together is really gorgeous. It does have a little bit, I don't know if you can see, little tiny bit right here on the edge. And I left that there because I just wanted to show you how easy, again, if you get a little bit of that seeps through, it's not the end of the world. This is just one of the Cricut blades that I use. And very easily, most of the resin, especially if you do it pretty soon after you've taken it off the masking and you don't let it sit for a couple of days, as you can see, I barely scraped it and that whole piece just popped right off. Okay. And the same thing, if you get any little bits that were maybe over the tape and did not want to come up, when you peeled up the tape, there's a little tiny piece of it here. It's really hard to see because it's so thin and clear. But you can sort of pry it up with the edge of the blade like this. If you can see it, there it is. You can sort of see that little piece right here. And then very gently, without scratching your resin, just slide that right off. And then I'll go back. There's a little bit of masking that was stuck under there, and I'll just peel that off as well. I did want to show you, we talked yesterday about how it's okay if you get some drips on your pieces, because the masking, it would come up with your masking. So I already unmasked no, I did not unmask the back of this one, did I? I thought I did. And so I just wanted to show you this one. There's a few spots you can see along this edge. I'm trying to make it so you can kind of see it in the light, that there is some overflow on some of these edges. And as I go through with peeling up the masking, I'm just gonna go nice and slow. And again, the closer you can keep it to being kind of right across like this versus pulling straight up, you're gonna get more of the resin is gonna come off with it. So I'm just pulling nice and slow, kind of straight back, and just gonna keep going. It's gonna obviously, rip because it's lots of different little pieces here. But just take your time and work your way around like this. And you'll see all of this over here where there was that thin resin that was sort of sitting on top, like over here. It's all coming right off, okay? One of the keys for this that I mentioned a minute ago is to make sure that you do your unmasking and get this off fairly soon after your resin has cured, because it's still a little bit soft right now. And so it's gonna be a lot easier. If you let it fully cure and just left this masking on for like a week, before you got around to taking it off, it would be much more difficult to pull off, and you'll end up with some of your masking stuck underneath of the resin that's hardened to a point where it's not going to come off easily. And then you end up having to do sanding and all of that kind of stuff, which isn't a huge deal, but it can be a pain in the butt because it takes time. So again, I'm just going to get the last little bit of this peeled off. So you can see, and again, you can kind of looking at how the glare on it, you can see that all of those edges are nice and clean now, where the resin came right off with my masking. So then as I'm finishing this, the last thing I did want to address, because I had several questions about, was how I seal these. The resin itself really doesn't need to be sealed. So if you make something that's just resin, you don't have to worry about sealing. However, if you're doing something that has wood, we all know we want to seal it to protect the wood and help it to be more water resistant, especially if we've put some stain on it. And there goes my dog. And so there's actually two different ways that I do this. It kind of depends on what I'm in the mood to do, honestly. So which one I feel like using. And so I'm going to show you both of those. One of them that you can do is to just use a basic wipe-on poly. This is just a basic polyurethane. It's a wipe-on, which I like because it's a lot easier to apply and then wipe off the excess. I apologize about my dog. And so this one is really nice. It's handy. It dries really quickly and it gives you a nice, I get the satin finish. So it's not shiny, but it doesn't make it, matte. The other one that I use, especially if I'm doing solid wood pieces, is I actually like to use linseed oil. I find that the linseed oil actually hardens it up as well. It gives it a nice seal. It protects it. It helps it to be water resistant, but it also, like I said, it kind of hardens it. So depending on the wood, this really does seep in and help with those softer woods and keeping them from breaking easily. So there's two different ways that I apply it. Again, it kind of depends on the piece I'm working on. I'm going to do this guy with the polyurethane. And I actually do it with a Q-tip most of the time. I just sort of shake up my poly here, shake it real good. And I just sort of dip my Q-tip down in there and make sure I get it on. And you don't need a lot. So, you don't want it drippy or anything. And make sure you have a cloth handy. You want one that's the lint-free cloth is your best option to use. Otherwise, it'll stick in there. So I'm going to just take this guy and I just sort of wipe it right along there. I don't want to be too crazy with it. I'm going to do my best to avoid getting it like puddles of it. I don't want puddles inside my resin here, but I'm just going to sort of wipe it on here. And you probably can't see in the video, but I can see a little bit of a sheen just where it's wet, where I'm applying the poly, so I can make sure I'm really getting everything on here. And it's okay if you get it on your resin, because again, this is a wipe on, wipe off kind of a thing for your poly. So I just put it on here like that. Make sure I got everything, all of those little areas. And then once I've done that, I don't really let it sit too long. It doesn't need to because it does dry so quick. And then I just take my lint-free cloth and just sort of wipe away the excess like that, real gently. And then you can go back with a nice clean spot and just sort of buff out on your resin to make sure that there's not any there that's stuck on there. And there you have it. That's the easiest way, I think, if you're applying poly. If I'm doing it on a bigger piece, like if I were applying it on here, I would probably just put the poly right on my cloth and just rub it in like that. Just kind of rub it on there and then wipe it off. The only reason I didn't do that on here is just because these are kind of intricate, small lines in here. And it would have puddled up in these open areas, and it would have been more likely to puddle up inside of my resin down in these little dents here where the resin is. So I didn't want it to do that. This one I would not have to be so worried about because I can really easily avoid getting it inside of the dolphin just by kind of wiping around those edges like that. But you can certainly use a Q-tip for either way. If you wanted to use a Q-tip even on your bigger ones, it works just the same. And then the other, excuse me, the other one that I like to use, the linseed oil, I apply the same way, either with a Q-tip based on kind of the size or using my lint-free cloth. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of it on here on my Q-tip. And I am actually going to grab one of these guys. I did not show you these yet. They turned out fairly good for a first attempt. There's a little bit of overflow, but I'll be able to go through with my Dremel or with my little razor blade and trim out just those little small edgings. But just like with that one, you can take your linseed oil and just rub it on like that. And the linseed oil on some of your darker woods, you're gonna see it actually does darken up your wood some, which is kind of nice if you have engravings and things because it shows up really well. And you can do the same method that I did on these where you just kind of use the Q-tip to get onto these edges if you want to. You can also, like most likely on this one being as big as it is, I would probably just use my cloth and just rub that on there. Either way works. Again, it just sort of depends on how comfortable you are with being able to avoid the resin as much as possible. So I just put some on here and I'm on my cloth. I'm just gonna rub it on there and rub it in. You don't want it to puddle on here. So you can see it's wet, but it's not like puddled. I'm gonna do the edges real quick as well. Don't forget your edges. You don't want anything seeping in through those either. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this even after once I trim up around those edges, I can always add a little bit more sealer if I need to. And you can see I'm not super worried about getting it on the resin because the linseed oil, just like the poly, is a wipe on and then you go back and kind of wipe it off just to make sure that there's no like wet areas where it's sort of puddled. So when I do that, I just go right over my resin and I can wipe off any of that linseed oil that's on there. And there you go. That's really all you do. You just sort of have to let it sit and finish drying the rest of the way. So that's really it. After that, you just, put on your findings, your jump rings and things like that once you get those done. So just a reminder, yes, sometimes, even when you think you've done this correctly, like I did, sometimes you still get some color seeping. So always do 2 to 3 coats of your sealer, letting it dry in between. But even if you do get some of this, don't stress because you can still save those pieces and they can still really turn out absolutely beautiful with a little bit darker of a stain put on them. All right, putting on your poly or your oil, whatever sealer you want to use. Again, I just use household Q-tips or a lint-free rag. And then the last thing, for those of you who actually made it to the end of the video, I told you that I took the extra resin and made these little, I always use my extra and make just these little small pieces. I have a mold that has a bunch of these on there. And you can actually make some really adorable earrings. And so here is one example, just again, nothing crazy, nothing wild, but adding that to this wood just adds an extra little pop of color, something fun. The ones This is one that I really love how it turned out, this light blue with the wood. Again, that's a nice fun little stud. Easy way to use those little bits of leftover that just add an extra little pop of color to your solid wood earrings. It doesn't take a lot of extra work or anything like that. These are ones that are added to acrylic, so you can actually mix your resin and acrylic as well, not just the wood with the resin. So don't waste those extra little bits. Get yourself a mold with some little small pieces in it like this for your earrings, and have some fun with those. I intend absolutely to add these, maybe even to this guy, or even maybe to my dolphins, just to add a fun little matching color. All right, I hope that that was helpful. Again, I think I talked too much and this one ended up at like 20 minutes, but I hope that it helps. If you have questions, please let me know, and check out some of the other designs on the Make It Fox on Facebook.